Hello folks, in today's guide we are covering how to forge maximum stars for all 5 different daggers within the Blades of Fire Hammer minigame. Now, a few side notes just before we get started would be, there are no variations to these minigames, and regardless of weapon size, shape and ingots used, these minigames will all be the same, meaning just copy as I do and you should be just fine. Additionally, there is such a thing as forged memory, so once completing the minigame with max stars, you can just skip it entirely when crafting that weapon again. The only drawback to this is, when unlocking a higher maximum star limit for that weapon, you will need to redo the minigame in order to unlock the new max limit. The minigame consists of 3 different mechanics, which are strength, width, and angle. You'll see me adjust the angle as we go, but strength and width may take some trial and error. I've added voice notes to try and help, but ultimately, matching your own screen to mine will likely yield the best results. But other than all of that, let's get started. The double Kukris are relatively easy. You simply head to the far left, increase strength, width, and angle to their limits, and then slightly lower strength and maybe a little bit of width just before striking. Once you've lined this first strike up, you can very easily just move along the blade, making very small adjustments if needed, until completing the blade entirely. Next, we have the double Bichwas, which despite first appearances are actually relatively straightforward. First, start by heading all the way to the left and then angling your hammer to the right and adjusting your width to the max. Then adjust your strength accordingly as you begin to make your way down the blade. You will likely want to make 1 or 2 much smaller adjustments along the way, but for the most part, it shouldn't be too difficult to eventually complete the blade. Up next, we have the double sai. This is another fairly simple forge. First, head to the far left, angle your hammer to the right, and adjust your width to the max. Then, quite simply, just keep adjusting your strength as you make your way down until eventually completing the blade. Next, we have the double Dirks, which is very similar to the double sai. Once again, start from the far left, angle your hammer to the right, adjust your width to the max, and then adjust your strength accordingly. Once done, you'll likely want to make 1 or 2 fine adjustments along the way. However, it should be relatively simple to eventually complete the blade. Finally, we do have the double Krisses, and just like all of the other forges, we want to start from the far left, angle the hammer all the way right, adjust your width to the max, and then begin adjusting your strength accordingly. Pretty much making sure to make 1 or 2 fine adjustments along the way, until naturally, eventually completing the blade. That is it for this guide, folks. I do have a handful of Blades of Fire guides in the works, so do keep an eye out for those. But in any case, I have a range of guides on the channel too, so do feel free to stop on by and check things out. Otherwise, thanks for watching, folks, and until next time, peace.